My name is Terry Cadenbach. I graduated from Parkway, what's now Parkway Central, in 1966. At that time, it was the only Parkway high school in existence, and this was all farmland. It was 141 was one lane each way, and it was the country. The girls used to ride their horses to school, keep them in the arena, and we'd bring our rifles and go hunting after school. So it's changed quite a bit. I got out to Parkway. We moved out here from Kirkwood, and it was a whole different world living out in what then was country. And we had a good time out here. I wrestled throughout high school, and I was not the best student. I had more fun doing other things than sitting in class. I usually slept through class, and I still made decent grades. But I was the principal's nemesis, I think. And after graduation, I got into that mode of what I call the endless summer syndrome, where it's drinking and partying and not doing anything else. And I knew I wasn't ready to go to college. So one day I decided, I woke up and I said, you know, Al Burr, who was our principal, he's convinced that I'm going to end up in prison, and I'm going to prove him wrong. So I joined the Army, and I decided that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it all the way. So I had my career in the Army and Special Forces doing classified operations for a couple of years. And when I got out, I went into law enforcement. I was a police officer for a few years, and then landed at the telephone company for the rest of my career. My whole thing was, as I got older, I realized, you know, I've had a pretty good life in spite of all my injuries and that, and it's time to start giving back. So for about 30 years now, I've been involved with Civil War reenacting, and I go to schools and talk. Usually it's 4th and 5th graders, and we talk about the Civil War and the history and show them a lot of the equipment. And some schools, I take my horse. Other schools, there's just not really a place to do it. And then in 2012, I wanted to do even more, so I started working down at Fort Leonard Wood. I'm a saddle maker by hobby, I guess. And I started working with the wounded soldiers down at Fort Leonard Wood, teaching leatherworking. And in 2014, I received an award from the president for the work with that. And I still, even though they've closed the program because they ran out of wounded soldiers, a lot of them still come to my workshop, and we work on projects and that. And most of them, the feedback I get from them is that it's far more beneficial to them than some of the formal things the Army has for them to recuperate and rehabilitate themselves. So that means a lot more to me than anything else, is working with the soldiers. I was hoping that Al Burr would be here tonight so I could tell him what an influence he really was, but unfortunately he just recently passed away. I think, you know, our generation, when we graduated in '66, I mean, think about what went on just in 5 or 10 years after we graduated. When I was in Vietnam, we got a man on the moon. Just the computer age in the 90s. And I think a lot of the folks in my generational bracket have done the same thing I've done with giving back to the community, whether it's been through teaching or volunteer work or whatever. And I get a lot more satisfaction out of that than I ever did punching a clock and going to work every day for 8 hours. It's real satisfying to know that you've got either a talent or an ability to pass on to other people. And I think that's really important. Otherwise, you lose track of who you are and where you are, and it all becomes about me, me, me. So I feel very fortunate, and the experiences of growing up here in Parkway, I wouldn't trade for anything, because it's a thing that a lot of the kids today don't get to enjoy. So I recommend it to anybody. Move out to the country and grow up out there.